Boom, boom. Ooh, what's going on, everybody? Oxydize, your testosterone hyped up stepdad, bringing you a very interesting, very fun video. We are doing something out of the ordinary, extremely extravagant, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Like, we are ranking all of the weapons in Albion Online in terms of solo PvE, as in grab this weapon, jump into a solo dungeon. What's going to be what's gonna clear, not maybe not the fastest, but the most reliably. Speed is part of it, so speed, reliability, sustainability. Okay, pretty much all what's gonna come down to. I have it organized between all of the weapon groups, right? So we have swords and then axes, following the tree from from swords up. If that makes sense. You'll know what I mean as we get going here. So to go through just a quick overview of the tier list, we have starting at the top, we have our junkies, roided baby, or S tier for all the normies out there. These are the top of the top. If you use these weapons, you're gonna do just fine. Just below that are the high T individuals, probably nothing too crazy about them, don't need nerfs or nothing, or A tier. These are great weapons. If you enjoy using this weapon, have at it. You should have no problem clearing any type of tier 8 dungeon with this weapon. Just below that are your averages. If you have a very good build and you have good food with you, maybe a couple extra potions for some of the harder bosses or just in difficult situations, these weapons are going to work just fine here. Okay, low T or low testosterone, C tier. These are the weapons that I don't really necessarily recommend you use, but are possible if you have a very good build and you just know your way around the weapon, more or less, or you have a lot of experience with the weapon. Okay, and then below that is the pipsqueaks, the no T individuals who just decided to go to the gym. He's like, you know what, it's not for me, which, hey, that's fine, but I would not use these on your team. Do not use these in the dungeon unless you are an absolute maniac and or god at the game. Now, under that are the unranked. The reason that these are unranked is because I don't think they're definitely not meant for solo PvE, and that's pretty much a lot of the arcane weapons. A couple arcane weapons have some kind of usability, but that's about it. Before we get going, I also have the Albion game up here just in case to if I want to explain an ability, I have easy access to it right here. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. First and foremost, we have broadsword. Oh, also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. What I'm going to be doing is placing these. Oh, this doesn't go here. This goes. Sorry. I'm gonna be placing these pretty much here and then moving them as I talk about it. So broadsword. Let's go over the good. High single target damage. Heroic strikes to the highest degree. Then their E does a very good, especially at tier 8, does like 1,000+ damage on a single E. Super good. It has the Q has an AoE, the W has an AoE parry. Swords all the way around are like pretty much by default A tier, or at least B tier, and then A tier, and then S tier for sure for some of them. So broadsword, I'm gonna put it B tier. Okay, I love broadsword. You hit this bad boy up with a crypt candle, you're gonna be off to the races. But the E, no, yeah, we're going to keep it B tier. Just because the E is single target, it does great against bosses, but the AoE is so important in solo dungeons, in my opinion. Claymore, kind of the same situation. All the swords are going to have the same Q and Ws. We're going to talk about the E, just the E, the ultimate ability of each weapon now. The Claymore does a high damage charge, and it also does a little bit of a stunning as well, not against bosses, so it's really only just a burst damage weapon. I'm going to put it in B tier as well, but below the broadsword, in my honest opinion. Dual swords, I think you're sitting up a little bit higher. Okay, the reason being is that their E is more of a AoE, so your clear speed is going to be a little bit quicker, and they do a lot of damage just based on their attack speed and stuff like that. So I would call this a very high T weapon, probably low high testosterone weapon, but high T weapon nonetheless. The Kingmaker. The Kingmaker is pretty good when it comes to PvE. It has a its E is a knockup and a damage to and fro, so there's a little bit of AoE involved with it, but not that great, to be completely honest with you. I would put this in either low high testosterone or high average testosterone. Let's put it at low high testosterone, but it might change. We're not sure yet. Following this, we have the Carving Sword. Carving Sword is fantastic. It has great AoE and it has great single target damage because its E, if you don't know, is a dash, does a flat amount of damage and reduces resistances, even on bosses. So this is anywhere from a high T, a high testosterone, possibly even roided. I'm gonna keep it in a high testosterone, high placing A tier, but maybe low S tier. And then finally, the Carving Sword. Carving Sword Crypt Candle. Okay, you're doing massive damage with the E, and it's an AoE based ultimate ability. This is a roided up weapon. And then Galantine pairs. Galantine pairs to me are a little bit, they're underwhelming. Their E is very similar to that of the dual swords, but it does a little bit more damage and does some max damage. Honestly, in my opinion, Galantine pairs are really cool and they're fun. I recommend trying them out, but they're maybe just above dual swords. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I do respect them, if that makes sense. Moving on over to axes. First and foremost is the battle axe. Is a single-handed weapon, so you can use this with Muzak, shields, Crypt Candle, etc., torches. So let's go over the Q, W's, and E. The Q, for most of your axes in PvE terms, it is a rending swing that does AoE damage and bleeds. The W can either be a battle charge, which increases your damage and attack speed, or it's the spinning blades, which just do a lot of really good AoE damage. And then, so already axes are sitting at A tier by default, and I'm not even playing. I don't think there's any B tier axes. I mean, the only B tier axe might be a battle axe, actually. But the battle axe, its E does as a life leech, basically. So I think this is actually a low tier high testosterone weapon because it has the Q, W axes, and it has that really good sustained and single target damage with its E. Okay, moving over into the scythe. Now, I do remember the scythe. I like the scythe, but just to give you an explanation of what the E does, it's very similar. It reaps twice, dealing damage around you and then causing bleeding per second for 5 seconds. So it's fun. It's good. It's better than the battle axe, but to me it falls short from some of the other axes. Okay, if that makes sense, just because it doesn't do as much damage as like the great axe, basically, and that's pretty much where that comes down to. The halberd's a very similar E. Let me read it to you. Deals damage all around you, and it puts bleed stacks on them. So very similar to everything else. I would probably put this. I mean, it's like tied with the scythe, but nothing too crazy, nothing too different. I'm honestly gonna put. I think we're gonna put these over the swords, by the way. I think Carving Sword beats these three, but yeah, I really like Bear Paws. Bear Paws is tough, so let me read the E to the Bear Paws for you. Jump towards your enemy, dealing massive damage and bleeding. So honestly, it's about the same tier as these three. It's definitely above this. I'm gonna put it like in between these two because it seems to do more damage than the scythe does, but a little bit less damage than the halberd. Carry-on collar. Carry-on collar is a definitely more is a more PvP focused weapon. It actually does, it affects the healing on the enemy. So give you just a better description of the E here. Sends some ravens dealing damage, and AoE, by the way, it causes bleeds and receives reduced healing. So for PvE terms, in my opinion, maybe it's probably a low tier A, or maybe even a high tier B. Let's go low tier A, even lower than Kingmaker. This is the Realm Breaker. The Realm Breaker is actually pretty good. It's not roided though, by no means. It's probably, honestly, let me see the numbers real quick. Dealing 591 damage, knocks in the air, and reduces their energy. It's more PvP focused. Because of that, ooh, that's tough, man. I mean, honestly, it's on par with the carving sword, in my opinion. We'll put it above the carving sword just because the Q and the W are so good. Yeah, I like that. The Great Axe, broken. Not really broken, just extremely good in my opinion. Pretty much the Q and W already good. On top of that, you have the E, which is just basically a whirlwind for however long, dealing damage, applying bleeding. It's extremely good. Use it if you haven't used it yet. All right, going good so far. How far are we in? We're 10 minutes in. It's gonna take a minute. It's gonna take a hot minute. But into the maces here. So maces, we're gonna start with the first mace here, which is just the mace. The maces, in my opinion, are not that great for solo PvE. Just to give you a description of the Q is an AoE. Their W, they have heavy slams and some interrupts. I would assume you would use heavy slam, which is a big damage dealer. Nothing else. There's a cast time associated with it, and that's pretty much the only thing that's special about it. Now, the normal mace is single-handed. It has a leap and is it a root or a stun? Oh, it's just a slow actually. Oh no, it is a stun. So it's a big damage and it stuns. Because of the stun, I'm gonna rate this a little bit higher than I think I am for a lot of the maces here. I'm probably gonna put this into a high B tier, not higher than swords. Even though these are single target, this is a stun melee. I just really don't like the W being a what's it called? Having a cast to it. Okay, for solo, I think because you can have this with like a crypt candle dealing extra damage, go for it. Next is the two-handed mace here. The maces are ones I have used before. It's been a while. I've only ever used them a couple of times, and because they are very lackluster weapons. So excuse me for having to look up a lot of this E's here. So this one is it's a silence. Oh, here you go. Yeah, okay, yeah. This is why I don't remember this one too much. You ready for this E? Silences all enemies in a 5-meter radius around you for 3.36 seconds. Removes all positive status effects of them and generates threat on them. This is a pipsqueak weapon, and I mean that wholeheartedly. The special ability does no damage. It silences the mobs, which does really nothing for you in PvE, in my opinion. So look at the Camlin mace here. Ooh, Camlin mace is a lot of fun. So it doesn't really do a ton of damage. Okay, let me read it to you. Shoots a shockwave in a straight line. Activating Vendetta. After a 1.5 second delay, the Vendetta pulls all enemies into one area, and then they will be stunned, dealing some damage, not much. Because of dealing not much damage, but at least it's dealing some damage and it stuns, we're gonna put it in the low testosterone C tier. The Morning Star, baby. So this E is root prison. It roots and generates threat. So this is going to be in the pipsqueak. Solo PvE, by the way, solo PvE. In like group stuff, it might be a little bit different. Bedrock mace. Pipsqueak. It's not good. It doesn't do any damage. It's more of a CC and kind of like fucking with people type of weapon. I don't really recommend it, but if it's something that's up your alley, you can have fun with it, but it's not going to be very good for PvE. I mean, it's almost in the unranked territory. In fact, it probably should be, but we're going to put it on Pipsqueak tier just because I don't have very much respect for maces, and that's just a fact here. So this is the Incubus mace. Does damage in a radius, and it reduces healing by 40%, and their max and current health are also reduced by 25%. This is interesting because it doesn't really do direct damage. It reduces max health and does a little bit of direct damage. So I'm going to put this in low testosterone, but above the Camlin mace, because it does a 25% decrease in max HP. I think is pretty interesting. So the Oath Keepers, these are very, very, very interesting weapons. Let me read you what they do here. Creates a blessed aura in front of you. Allies who pass through get a shield that is over 1400 damage and increased movement speed. Additionally, your maces will be blessed for 5 seconds, while blessed every normal attack kills up to 5 allies at the 6 speed radius around you for 71. So when you activate the E, not only do you get a shield, you also get to heal yourself for each hit that is being hit, if that makes sense. So the damage isn't there by no means, but the sustain, what's the cooldown on this? 30 seconds. The sustain on these are not too shabby. So give me a second. This is my pre-workout, by the way. Blue, I think it's like a blue popsicle flavor. I can't remember. I'm gonna keep them here. I think these are low testosterone C tier. They're not pipsqueak. I think they're usable, but I think they're worse than these two maces in all honesty. So the hammers, look at the hammers up and going. I actually like hammers quite a lot here. There we go. So this first hammer here, just the normal old hammer. It's I like weapons that are one-handed because you get to use offhands with them. So it is a one-handed weapon. The Q's and W's of hammers. The first Q is Iron Breaker. It does damage in an area and it also reduces resistances. Pretty good Q in my opinion. The W you would want to use is more than likely a heavy cleave. Does a ton of damage after a cast time. Like at tier 8, it does 781 damage to all enemies in front of you after a 1 second cast time. That's not too bad, especially if you reduce the resistances with Iron Breaker. Pretty good combo. So honestly, probably B tier Q and W's, and the E might bump it or lower it depending on there. All right, you ready? Here we go. The E for the Elder Hammer is a radius damage and stun. The stun at tier 8 is 3 seconds, which is actually a little bit higher than some of the stuns in the maces. And the damage itself is very mediocre. Maybe if you add like a crit candle, it might be okay, but mediocre at best. We're gonna leave that in either low testosterone, low testosterone C tier, or here. I think I respect it enough to put it below the one-handed mace, but in the B tier. It might change though, depending on the other hammers here. So this is the Great Hammer. This one has a charge to it. All right. So the Great Hammer, you charge, dealing damage and stunning for 3.71 seconds. Pretty good stun, pretty good damage. Overall, the damage is better than our damage here. And I think honestly, with the stun too. Hold on. I want to see what the numbers are on the mace real quick. Let me see what the numbers are on the tier 8 mace. 583 damage and also stunned. No. This is better. So just based on the numbers at tier 8, they do similar numbers wise. They do similar things. They do damage and they stun. But this does more. The mace does more damage and stuns for a little bit less, but not much. Okay, next is the, what's this thing called again? The pole hammer. That's right. So this one is a huge stun and damage, and I'm talking like huge stun. Okay, and it's also an AoE damage. Since we don't need the dash in PvE, not really. This outdoes the Great Axe, but still less than the actual one-handed mace, in my opinion. And that's really all I'll have to say about it. The Pog Log, baby, S tier. Without even looking at it, it's S tier. It's roided. It's crazy. Probably not, actually. So the E is, when I first started playing Albion, I wanted to make the Grove Keeper work so hard, and it's, well, let's talk about it here. After a short delay, you will jump to a ground target location. On impact, all enemies in the 6 meter radius are stunned for 4 seconds, take damage, and you get increased resistances. It's not bad, right? It's definitely B tier. But you also get increased resistances, so that is some more survivability. It stuns and does damage. I am gonna put this above the mace. I'm gonna do it on this one because you do get the extra resistances, which can lead to better fights against like bosses and such like that. Okay, Forge Hammers. I also like the Forge Hammers. Forge Hammers is interesting because I actually invested quite a bit of time in the Forge Hammers for a while because of the E on it. So the E is really, really good. Makes you huge. Makes you absolutely massive for 10 seconds. Increases your resistances for your physical and magic resistances. And you get increased attack damage by 135% for 10 seconds. So you're doing over double damage for 10 seconds. And this slows enemies in your vicinity. So it's good for PvP in that sense. Not really for PvE, I guess. Sorry for hitting my mic, by the way. So, but that's it. There's no, I mean, it slows, but there's no stuns or roots. Honestly, even though the numbers are better for Grovekeeper, this just, when I played with this, I felt better with it. I think they're better builds to use with the Forge Hammers, and that's why it's going to be over the Grovekeeper. Next, the Tomb Hammer. I can tell you right now, Tomb Hammer is going to be garbage. Let me tell you why. The Tomb Hammer, basically, it's a stun that does a little bit of damage. I would say it's better than the Mace, but not better than these bad boys. Or it's not as good as the Mace, but not better than better than these bad boys. I got there. I'm gonna speed it up here, by the way. The Hand of Righteousness, right? Hand of Justice. Okay, basically you like swing and deal damage to enemies as you swing, and it knocks them to the air for a bit. It's kind of garbage, actually. I'm talking like, I kind of want to put in the low testosterone C tier, either that or average below average on the B tier. But we're gonna leave it here just in the sake of time. Next, normal crossbow. Let's get to the crossbows here. So this is the normal crossbow. It has the sniper shot that does a ton of damage, but it's single target. Okay, let's take a look at the Q and W first. So the Q, you're probably gonna use explosive bolt, deals 410 damage at tier 8. And then for your W, you're probably gonna use something like Sunder Shot, if I had to guess, because it just does damage and reduces resistances. Not great W, great Q, in my opinion. The E itself is okay. I'm gonna put this in like, this is tough. I mean, the single target damage is pretty nuts. I think it might be over the hammers, honestly, just because the Q is really, really good. Yeah, we'll leave it there. This is the light crossbow. Yeah, light crossbow is good because it also gets to hold like a crypt candle in the other hand, so you're doing more damage on top of that. The E, it like sets a bomb and the bomb detonates. See what the numbers are on this? It does 477 damage, and it's an AoE as well. Honestly, I'm kind of feeling this in a high B tier, maybe low A tier, because you also get to have that offhand too, and the offhand is so important in my opinion. Weeping Repeater. Oh, this one I remember being pretty garbage. Yeah, so shoots a mine onto the ground, becomes active in 2 seconds. When someone steps on it, it does a lot of damage. It doesn't even do more damage than this. This is a very low tier, maybe even pipsqueak weapon. We'll put it in like, I don't know, honestly low tier C, because I mean you can move the mobs to step over it. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of lame, honestly. So this is the heavy crossbow. This is pretty much just a pretty big E. It just does a lot of damage, but it does half the amount of damage as the sniper shot here on the normal crossbow. But let me compare times here. 15-second cooldown versus, so 15-second cooldown versus a 18-second cooldown, but the cast time is instant. Honestly, since the cast time doesn't matter a super ton amount in PvE, so we put this in B tier. We're gonna put this like probably in between, honestly. Bolt casters, S tier, 100% S tier. You might be thinking, but the E doesn't really, it's single target. Okay, you're right. I'm gonna put it in like mid tier, high testosterone, just because it, like, I don't know, something about using these just feels really good, and I've done really well with them. Check them out, it's super cool. The Energy Shaper, Energy Shaper, this one's interesting. So channel a beam which follows the cursor, and it deals 252 magic damage and 82 magic damage against creatures. It's god awful against creatures. It's pretty disappointing. I used it before on my own time, and it was just kind of like, it's neat, but it's nothing too special, and it's really not even that good in my opinion. I'm kind of liking high low testosterone tier. The siege bow. This one is an interesting weapon. It's really bad against bosses. Here, I can read it to you. It deals 300 damage per second against players, an additional 2% of the per second, then against players an additional 2% of the enemy max health will be dealt as true damage. So it's better in like ZVZ for sure. Really good in ZVZ. But for PvE, it's a little bit lackluster. I'd probably put it in like low average testosterone tier. Going into bows are pretty solid. You really can't go wrong with the war bow for sure, but normal bow I think is not as good. So go ahead and get into what they say here. So for your Qs and Ws, your Q, you'll probably go into multi-shot or deadly shot, which is basically a piercing shot for any type of AoE. Your W, you'll probably just use explosive arrows, because everything else isn't really that good for PvE. And then E, so the E for the bow is Enchanted Quiver, which can be really good paired with the W, because it pretty much gives you 18 enchanted arrows. Every normal attack with an enchanted arrow will increase your normal attack damage by 35% and attack speed. So it does a lot of damage really fast. Explosive arrows. I'm gonna leave it in B tier. I think we're gonna put it above the Grove Keeper though. God, this video is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. All right, we're getting there, boys. War bow. About the same here. Longbow, a little bit better. So the longbow has a interesting one. It does rain of arrows. It deals 144 damage for 2.89 seconds, and it hits 6 times. So it's a channel. So it's really good against everything but bosses. So honestly, we're gonna put that below the swords. Bow Abaddon, S tier, easily S tier. The Bow Abaddon is extremely good. Essentially, you get a stalker jacket with your bow. I don't know, it's really good. I like it a lot. It's hard to beat. If you have mercenary jacket, you're pretty much unkillable. I mean, it's in the same tier as great axe in my opinion. The weeping, what's it called again? Whispering bow. So it's kind of like Forge Hammers. Honestly, same level as bow for me. Same exact level. You get increased damage and increased range. That's kind of like it, right? But you also take increased damage. So we're actually gonna put that a little bit lower. I remember when I used this, it was pretty powerful, but you have to it took longer because you had to recover a little bit more than normal, but not bad. Ooh, honestly, I might not have used the Wailing Bow. Pierce through enemies. Each time an enemy is hit by the arrow, it becomes stronger, causing you more damage to targets. Subsequent targets. I'm gonna put this on unranked. It sounds really good, but I know I have not used that one before, so I do apologize. Ooh, this one is interesting. What's it called again? I used it once. It was really expensive, the Mist Piercer. So it shoots in a straight line 4 arrows, and it pierces, dealing a lot of damage. It's honestly pretty good. Like, I don't know if it's S tier, but I think you might be sitting up here, maybe even above the Realm Breaker, because of it shoots 4 piercing shots that do a ton of damage with a 30-second cooldown time. Not bad, honestly. Against a lot of different mobs, you're gonna do pretty good here. Spears, baby. The spears are okay. I think some are better than others. So basically with the spears, you have a couple of things you can do. All right, I recommend you go into the lunging strike, which is just the Q is a lunging strike, just does damage in an area, an area in front of you. It kind of pierces all the enemies that it hits. And then the W, you can either go deflecting spin, which I don't really recommend in PvE unless you are in a dire situation. I would go Force of Spears, which just does damage in front of you. You channel it, and it just does a lot of damage. And then the E. So the E for spear is it's similar to broadsword. It just does a lot of damage based on the amount of spear charges you have. Nothing too crazy, honestly. I don't know, the Q and W are pretty good. I would probably put them above most hammers. Yeah, I mean, I think spears start on a high B tier, just right off the get go. This is which spear is this? The pike, yeah. So the pike, it roots enemies and does damage based on spear charges. The root's not really necessary. It's pretty much on par with the other spear, but it does a little bit less damage number for number. No, it does more damage. Yeah, it does more damage. We're gonna put that right there actually. The heroin spear does damage and stuns. I think you're looking at like maybe a little bit higher tier here. Let me compare damages. 498 magic damage at its best and stuns enemy. Never mind. It does about half the amount of damage and stuns for a little bit over 2 seconds. It's gonna be below it, but I mean, I think it's better than pretty much all of these. Ooh, I love this thing. This is probably a low tier A weapon. The Trinity Spear, correct. Yes. So you jump, deal damage when you jump, a lot of damage actually, and you get increased attack speed and movement speed and cast speed while you're in like your little aura. So honestly, this is probably we're gonna put that right there. I think that's a good place to put it. This needs to be a little bit lower. Now that I'm looking at this, yeah, bear paws need to be a little bit lower there. Okay. This is the Spirit Hunter. So this one's actually kind of crazy. Okay, so you throw a spear and it pierces. It changed. This used to be javelin or like a hook, but now it's you throw it, it deals damage, and then it leaves a corrupted trail that does a ton of damage. It's actually I think it's a sleeper pick. I think you're looking like right around here honestly, because I actually use this in corrupted dungeons. And the amount of damage it did to mobs was phenomenal, dude. It's actually insane. This is the pike, or glaive, excuse me. Very similar to the pike, but doesn't root and it puts them behind you. Honestly, it's doesn't do as much damage, and it doesn't stun. It just flings them behind you. So I think we're looking pretty low actually, in my opinion. This is a pretty cool weapon, the Daybreaker, right? Yes. The Daybreaker I've used plenty of times. It does a lot of damage no matter how many spirit charges you have. So it doesn't get rid of your spirit charges, and it does a good burst of damage. This is probably going to be sitting low A tier because the E is also an AoE as well. It also removes buffs, but that's not really important within in PvE. Where are we at? 32 minutes. It's going to be about an hour, it looks like. Excuse me, a lot of talking here. All right, nature staves. So actually I'm going to put some of these in unranked because I haven't used all of these. Like right off the bat, I haven't used that one, and I haven't used one of the druid staffs there. We'll go when we read the abilities. Okay, first and foremost, the wild staff. So all of these are going to be pretty similar. I think they start off in probably low B tier because their Q and W are actually pretty damn solid. Let me get to them over here. So the Q you'd want to use is thorns. Thorns, you know, basically if they attack you, they get dealt damage, but also you deal extra damage on your normal attacks in an AoE, which is pretty crazy. The W is normally revitalize, which is basically a channeled heal that will heal you once you channel it, and it does loads of healing, and it's really, really good. It also heals energy too, so energy is not an issue with this build. But the wild staff, you just create an area that lasts for an amount of time and it heals you in it. It's nothing too crazy. I think it's going to be in the low tier. The damage is okay and the sustain is okay, so it's going to be low testosterone for me. I think this one I have used before. I think it's this one I haven't used. Yeah, the druidic staff. Yeah. It's not very good. It's basically the same thing, QW, and the E is just a heal that takes 3 seconds. It's a big heal. Honestly, I wouldn't use that one at all. Unranked, because I have not used the blight staff. Yeah, I just have not used it. I think this one's the great nature staff. Yeah, great nature staff. A tier, probably. Probably like right around there. Why is this one so much higher than the rest? Let me read you the E. Basically the E, every time you get hit, you get healed. So like you can out heal, so you can use this and then pop Hunter Hood. So while you're being healed by the damage being dealt to you, they're also being dealt damage back. It's a crazy good E, and like once you cast it, it's just on you as a buff, so you don't have to channel anything. I don't know, it makes a huge difference, and you can pretty much solo tier rates with this weapon. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Oh, you know, I think, yeah, I have not used this one either, so I do apologize on the, I mean, it's just nature staff, right? Or this one. Ugh, yikes. Sorry on the nature staffs, guys. Claws. So daggers are fantastic PvE weapons. Don't let the looks surprise you. They're really good. The Q is going to be deadly swipe. Essentially does AoE damage and gives you what are they called? Assassin spirits, which make you deal extra damage but take extra damage. The W you're going to want to use is either going to be chain slash or throwing blades. Throwing blades, they deal damage and increase your attack damage. Chain slash makes you immune and you deal a pretty large amount of damage to multiple enemies. Really good. So to me, in my opinion, they're going to start in like low A tier when it comes to their Q and W. Then now it just comes down to their E. I don't really like the E on claws because you have to channel it and it does a lot of damage, don't get me wrong, but it just roots, right? It doesn't stun. So yeah, so if you're being attacked by mobs and they're if they're trying to do abilities you want to move out of the way of, you really can't while you're using E here. So like, well, I'll put it at a high tier average testosterone. Dual daggers, there we go, we got the words out of our mouth. Basically just does a lot of damage. So just to give you what it can do at 3 assassin spirit charges, 1600 total damage at tier 8. So this, I mean, to me, you're sitting at maybe just below this right here, just because it does a ton of damage. The Q and Ws are really good. Moving on. One-handed dagger, to me, it's still S tier because the E heals you pretty much to full health, basically. Really good. You're not gonna die with it. Just use the one-handed dagger. It's a life leech build similar to battle axe, but just way better. We have the bloodletter. Bloodletter to me is pretty good, but it's gonna be sitting at maybe, I'll probably put it above the carry-on collar, below Kingmaker. I don't know. Every time I've tried to use this weapon in PvE, it's just okay, right? It's really not that great. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it should be better. The E is basically an execute at below 40% health. This is gonna do a lot more damage, burst damage, and it's a charge AoE. It's still good. The Death Givers, I'm gonna put this just above the Bloodletters. The E is more single target focused, but it just did more damage when I was actually using it in PvE, and I felt better, especially against bosses too. So in my opinion, it's gonna be just above the Bloodletter. Black Hands. Black Hands, I'm going to put, because it also stuns and knocks back, which that necessarily isn't the greatest thing in the world. Probably just below Bloodletter. Essentially, it attacks twice. The first one does a little bit of damage and purges and stuns. Second one does a lot more damage and knocks back. It's a lot of damage, but it's single target, and it's just, you know, it could be better. IMO. Bridled Fury. High A tier. So Bridled Fury does a lot of damage based on Assassin Spirit stacks. 1100 damage at tier 8 with 3 Assassin Spirit attacks, and it's an AoE 1100 damage, and it shoots you back, so you can like separate yourself from the mobs, get some cooldowns back. Maybe you can get some more abilities in. Really good, and the fact that it's AoE is also a bonus. Okay, we're getting there, boys. We're getting there. Oh. Stabs, quarter stabs. So off the bat, they're gonna be low tier to Pipsqueak. I don't think these are very good weapons for PvE. So let's get into them real quick. So the double-bladed staff, you have the Q and W. Your Q is either concussive blow, which does damage and puts concussion stacks on your enemy. Two concussion stacks equals a stun. It's a lot of work for really nothing. The cartwheel does it, like it cartwheels, interrupt spell casting. It does damage AoE, not very much damage AoE, but it's there. The W, you're either going to use empowered slam, which does damage in a radius and it's instant, cooldown 7 seconds, or heavy cleave, does a lot of damage, cooldown 18 seconds. You're probably going to end up using empowered slam here. Mediocre W. And then the E for crescent slash is an area dealing damage, and it just does a little bit of damage and it slows. It's okay. I mean, honestly, it's better than some of the other ones, so we're gonna put it at low tier, low testosterone, low tier, low testosterone here. The balance staff, this one's interesting, right? Yeah, I remember using this one. So you get like a rock shield and it slows enemies, reduces healing. It's not good. It doesn't do any damage. It's honestly kind of garbage. We're gonna put this in Pipsqueak. It's gonna be at the same level as like what's it called, Bedrock Mace. Monk staff is okay. Monk staff is pretty good because you get to throw your monk staff and it does damage in like a radius. What else does it do for you? Reduces move speed and damage by 22%. Yeah. I mean, it does extra damage. It's no better than these down here. Maybe above the Camlin, below the Camlin Mace is where I'm gonna put this one. Quarterstaff roots and does damage. I'm sorry, this is the Ironclad staff. This one surprised me. This one's actually like a low testosterone because it actually does AoE kind of like a great axe. It's just not as good, like nowhere near it. But there is, to me, in my opinion, there's something going on with it that I recommend you give it a shot here. Oh, dude, actually, pretty good is the Soul Scythe. Shoot the tornado, dealing damage, and puts them into the air. The tornado is actually pretty good. We're gonna put this right about here. Yeah, I think that seems good. Now this is the quarterstaff, and this one it does a lot of damage in roots. So I mean, if you use like a demon cape with this, it's gonna be like OP for like every other, like every 90 seconds, something like that. But it's really not that good still. So we're gonna put this maybe just above the Oath Keepers, but I think that might even be pushing it. And then finally, I will say I have not used that one in PvE. I have used it before in the, in the test servers. I remember it not being that good. I mean, it'll probably end up going here. I have not used it in live servers though, but I don't think it's changed much. So, you know, we'll just put it here. If you want a description of the E, basically it does a lot of damage and it roots. Oh, wait a minute. What am I thinking of? This is actually okay. So it does a lot of damage and roots, and you can actually cast it twice in a row. We're gonna put that in like pretty high up there. What was I thinking of? I'm not sure. We'll just move on. Fire stabs. Fire stabs are innately A tier because of their Q and Ws. Go ahead and go to the fire stabs. Where are we at? 42 minutes. Under an hour, baby. Under an hour. Fire staff, the Q, you're going to use burning field, puts down a little burning patch that does damage over time. Super good. The W, I mean, you probably want to use fireball. It does a lot of damage on impact and sets people on fire or things on fire for 6 seconds. I mean, already really good. Fire staff plus mercenary jacket, you're pretty much in axe territory. This is going to be a high tier A at least, maybe some S tiers, maybe a little bit lower. So the normal fire staff just does a lot of damage with a 15-second cooldown. Actually, we're gonna put it high A tier, maybe even high A tier. Yeah, but we'll do high A tier. But I mean, we're tiptoeing on the S tier, onto roided territory. This is the wildfire staff, I believe. It's gonna be up there somewhere. Let me see. Yeah, you get the magma sphere. It's like the big rolling meatball. I mean, it's good. Like, I really have nothing else to say other than like it's this, but with a rolling meatball. Honestly, that's god tier. LOL. The blazing staff, again, it makes a fire staff tornado. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. It's super good still. The great fire staff, this one I've only used a few times. The flame pillar, right to the ground, dealing 5 damage to all enemies. Yeah, it's not as good as the rest of them. It's still okay. I would put this probably just below the spear. It seems that the E just does less damage than the rest of the E's so far, which is like the, you know, pretty much the deciding factor that separates most of these weapons. The brimstone staff, this one I've used in I use this one in group quite a bit. I've used it I think once or twice in solo. Yeah, it does the meteor thing. It does a ton of damage, but it's a 2-second cast time, and it's a cooldown of 30 seconds, which is like pretty long comparatively. It's still A tier. I would put this, it does a lot of damage. We're gonna put this above the Great Nature Staff because of the damage. No, we'll put it just below. We'll put it above Realm Breaker for sure though. Oh, what's this one called? I've used this one too. Infernal Staff, yeah. An enemy inflicted with contagious fire ignites over nearby enemies, inflicting strong damage over time that deals 101 damage every second. Honestly, I don't think I've used this weapon. 100%, I don't think I've used it. So I'm going to put that in the unranked. Let me know what you think about that one. It sounds interesting. Sounds really interesting. This one's a really cool one. The Dawn Song, baby. So the Dawn Song, you get like a phoenix when it comes out. So summons a flaming phoenix that burns the ground with its fiery breath. Enemies hit by the fire breath receive 700 magic damage. The ground keeps burning for 6 seconds afterwards, and enemies inside the burning area receive even more magic damage and receive reduced healing. It is not S tier. I would put it, I mean, on par with Blazing Staff. It does a very similar thing. So it's still really, really good. Whew, okay, we're getting there, fellas. Holy Staves. I'll probably put a lot of these on unranked, but just know they're actually sleeper picks, okay? So let's get into what their Q and W's are. So the Q's are, you either have a heal or a smite, basically. And I recommend going smite with these. And then the W's are kind of interesting. There's a holy beam that deals that heals, and then there's a sacred pulse that knocks back enemies and deals damage too. And it also heals you as well. I've used a lot of these in corrupted dungeons. I try to play around a lot more holy staffs. I have used a couple of these in solo PvE. They're all very similar, kind of like nature staff, but some do outshine more than others. So I think innately they're low tier B, because smite does a lot of damage. If you have scholar robe and you can spam that shiz, it's insane damage. The holy staff is you just heal a target basically, and it's a cooldown of 10 seconds. I'm gonna leave that where it is because you can use it. The Q and W are your damage dealers, and they're okay, but the sustain using holy stabs are actually pretty sick. So I'm gonna leave it at a low tier B. The life touch staff, right? So channeled heal, which repeatedly heals you an ally in close range. Each tick kills for 1 to 3, and also removes all debuffs, movement, and parrying effects. I have not used this one. I'm gonna leave this one unranked. I've used this one in group PvE, but not for solo. This is the Fallen Staff, I believe. It is the Fallen Staff. I've used it for group, but not solo, so I'm not going to rank that one. Divine. Dude, Divine's actually pretty poggers. So Divine is really good because you get the same Q and W, but your E is a shield that also heals you. And it's, I think it's an instant cast too, I believe. Let me make sure here. It is an instant cast. It heals you for 1400 damage. After 4 seconds, it collapses and heals all allies 247. So the damage isn't any different than the holy staff, but to me the sustain is a lot better, just because you do get a pretty big shield, so you can dodge abilities with it, or you can tank through abilities if you're trying to get some extra cast in, etc, etc. So we're gonna put that a little bit higher, not above mace. Okay. Divine Staff. Again, I believe I used is it no Redemption Staff, right? Yeah, I've used this in group, but not solo. And I believe I've never even touched that one before. What is this? The Great Holy Staff? Yeah, I've not even touched that one. Hollow Fall. I have played around with Hollow Fall. Let me read you the E on Hollow Fall real quick. Jump towards a ground target location. On the way, it knocks enemies in the air and also increases resistances. It heals you, knocks enemies away, and increases resistance. So it's on the same tier PvE wise. For PvP, it's crazy. It's insane corrupted dungeon weapon right now. But for PvE, it's pretty much the same tier as our normal holy staff, because it has okay sustain. I mean, increased resistances, extra damage. What's the cooldown on this bad boy? 18 seconds. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely average tier on this one. Nothing too crazy. I mean, maybe even like maybe low testosterone, but high tier low testosterone. We'll go with that. Where we at? 49 minutes, 10 minutes, and we're almost there, boyos. So going into the arcane staffs, I've used all 3 of these before. The first being, I believe, Witch. Just normal arcane staff. So let's read the Q and W's for Arcane, which are pretty garbage in the sense of PvE. You get either Energy Bolt, which deals magic damage, which deals 300 magic damage with a cast time of 1.2 seconds. Arcane Protection, which gives you a shield, and then Magic Shock, which does damage and silences. So I mean, it's okay. It's similar to Smite, honestly, PvE wise. And then you have Frazzle, which does damage and increases damage taken by the enemy. You have Energy Beam, which drains energy. You have Empowering Beam, which empowers. So you're going to use the Frazzle that does magic damage and increases damage taken by 23% for 5 seconds on the enemies. So that's pretty good. And then the E for the Arcane Staff. So by default, in my opinion, we're right here. Just based on Q and W alone, we're right here. The E shoots a sphere in the target direction, which detonates on an enemy impact in a 6-meter radius, deals 210 magic damage, removes all buffs and silences. Dude, honestly, we'll leave it here, but it's not that good. This is the Great Arcane Staff. Oh nope, I have not used this one. I guess I've only used 2 of the Arcane Staff. The Witchwood. The Witchwood's actually, to me, it's actually high tier low testosterone, just because it does it's W, or it's E, excuse me, does a lot of damage. A black hole that pulls any enemy caught into its center, collapsing, dealing 400 damage and slowing them. I mean, like, it's nothing special, but it does a little bit of damage here. Let's put that there, I think. Let's put it right there, I think, actually. Okay, we're almost there. Ice Staff, baby. Ice Staff, we got the normal Ice Staff. Ice Staff's pretty good. So you're gonna be going with the Q is Ice Shard, deals damage with a 1.2 second cast time in an area, pretty solid. The W, you go, I guess Shatter's probably the best one here. Because, like, I've also used Frost Nova, which deals damage and you get to teleport away, which can be very useful, by the way. And Frost Bomb does a little bit of damage too. I remember using all 3. I think all 3 are fantastic, but I think Shatter's probably the best one here. I think by default, I think Frost Staff start in like a like average tier B, but we're gonna keep it here just to that way we know where it's at. And this one does damage in roots, nothing too special. I'm gonna leave it in the low B tier. The Hoarfrost Staff, right? Yes, this one is the Avalanche. It freezes enemies and it deals damage. It's honestly maybe a little bit higher than the normal Frost Staff. Nothing special, but it's still, like, I mean, it works. The Great Frost Staff. This one's like this is like a blizzard, right? Or hail, yeah. So you pretty much set an area where hail is gonna fall, and it does damage in that area. Oh, I think my music just stopped. All right, there we go. And it just does damage over time in that area. So honestly, we're probably gonna put this in the we're gonna put that there. Honestly, I kind of like it. Ooh, do I like this in A tier? I think I kind of do like this in A tier, if I'm being really honest with you. I know. But just having that over time damage right there is just pretty good. Okay, going into next is the Glacial Staff. Ice Storm, which is, okay, so this one's very similar to the Great Nature Staff, but it has a little bit of extra stuff to it. Creates a Ice Storm for 15 seconds, slows enemies. Ice Storm keeps dealing magic damage while enemies are inside. It deals 63 damage every 0.5 seconds. How's that compared to the other one? Oh no, okay, it's nowhere near as good. I remember trying it out and being like, it seems similar but not as good. It's actually gonna be like just above the Hollow Fall here, because the Q and W are still Ice Q and W's is good, but the E is a little bit more lackluster. I don't think I've used this next Frost Staff though. Let me take a look at it. Icicle Staff. I have not, so I'm gonna put that in unranked. Okay, the I know this name. Permafrost Prism. So Permafrost Prism is solid. It's a very good E. Let me read you the E here. Create an ice crystal on the ground. It freezes enemies for 1 second, and it also explodes, dealing 600 magic damage. It's really good. It's definitely on the same tier as here because of the amount of damage it can do, and it also freezes, so it gives you more time for your abilities to come back, your other cooldowns to come off cooldown. So you're doing a lot of damage with it. It's pretty good. I remember trying it out. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of mage stabs in this game to begin with, but I tried it out and it was pretty solid. Okay, so this one, the Chill Howl. Chill Howl's doing really good in PvP. In PvE, solo PvE, it's pretty much, in my opinion, probably the same as Permafrost Prism. Let me tell you the E real quick. You can either freeze yourself or an enemy. So if you freeze yourself, it's kind of like ice block on yourself, and then after it like goes, you know, once the ice block is done, expires, it does a large amount of damage to things around you. Honestly, I kind of want to put it higher because like you can make some pretty good plays having an ice block on you. Yeah. We're gonna put this like probably just below the fire stabs. It's pretty solid. Okay, baby. Last, we're on curse stabs now. I think a couple of these I have not done either. I think maybe I think I've done all of these actually. No, not this one. We'll cross the bridge when we get there. So first is the great curse stab. So let's go ahead and talk about the Q and W first. The Q you're gonna take is probably gonna be Curse Sickle. Shoots a Curse Sickle and puts vile curses onto your enemies. An AoE vile curse. Finally, you also have Armor Piercer. Does damage and reduces resistances, 15-second cooldown. Curse Beam does damage up to 5 enemies and cooldowns 10 seconds. So I mean, pretty good options for W's. Desecrate's not really not that good. Grudge is not that good. Dark Matter is okay. The other two are way better. So the Area of Decay, enemies inside will have all the heal over time effects removed, and we'll have Vile Curse reapplied repeatedly. It's not that good for PvE. For PvP, I have not used this either. I tried using this in PvE on like some tier 6 dungeons because it ended up in my bank from doing whatever the hell I was doing, and I was just like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. So in my opinion, the A and the Q and W's are pretty good, but honestly the E needs to be phenomenal with curse stats for them to be really good, and you'll see what I mean. The Damnation Staff. Cataclysm creates an area on the ground of radius that reduces enemy resistances by 72. Enemies hit also receives 2 magic damage every 1 second for 6 times. Actually, I thought I did use this one. I was wrong. I have not used this one. Put this in unranked. And this one I know I've not used. The Demonic Staff. Yeah. It's really not that good either. Now, these I know I have used all 4 of these. Guaranteed. So the first one is really good. The E. Puts a curse on your target and it deals damage after a short amount of time based on how many vile curses, up to 4 vile curses. At 4 vile curses, you're doing 1500 damage. And you can use this with Mercenary Jacket and get a lot of good heals. We're talking easy A tier. Easy A tier. Maybe even like sword level A tier. Where did I put my... Yeah, like right up here for sure. This is the Cursed Skull. It's kind of similar. It deals damage, deals an additional 1.2% of the enemy max health as true damage per second. It's pretty good too. I would probably put this in like, you know, I'll put the skulls together. It sounds like fun to me. Oh, dude, what's it called? The Life Curse Staff. So you summon a ring of deadly blades around yourself or an ally and it follows the target. The blades will deal damage and reduce attack power by 5% up to 10 times. So it does a ton of damage on top of the curses, and you can usually use Mercenary Jacket to heal yourself all the way back to full health with no problem. This is going to be also a low A tier weapon. Finally, fantastic weapon here. The Shadow Collar. It does, the E has a different effect based on the armor that the target is wearing. If it is a plate armor, it gives, hold on, let me just read them. If it's plate armor, it slows enemies in an area, and after a while it deals damage. Leather armor, it's like a Hellion Jacket effect. It has an aura around you that does damage and like heals you based on damage dealt. And then cloth armor is like a Stalker Jacket. It just does a lot more damage around you. Really good. You have a ton of sustain, a ton of damage. We're talking like probably just shy of Chill Howl, but maybe, above chill how. I'm just, you know what, I liked it a lot when I used it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe. This is it. This is my thoughts. I'm sorry I didn't get to do these ones, but they're really not that good anyway, so I don't think I'm missing out by not ranking those. But these ones though, I think, you know, let me know in the comments below what you think of my tier list. Maybe more could have ended up in roided, but I respect these four the absolute most. I mean, looking at this, honestly, these should be S tier. I think Clarion Blade deserves S tier. I really, really do. I love the Clarion Blade. You know, honestly, to me, this makes a little bit more sense. This makes a little bit more sense to me. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. Okay. Now we're done for sure. If you like the video, please like, comment, subscribe. Please let me know what you think of all the all my opinions here. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And stay strong, brother.